Yes. Hi, my name is Sophia Botha. Welcome to another edition of Botha Rants. Of course, there was no show on Wednesday because it was my birthday and I was busy getting drunk, which also meant that I missed Joe Biden's State of the Union address. However, we are going to be talking about some stuff which he said in that address in the show, as well as much else. Ozma can't make it tonight, so I'm flying solo. Alright, yes, this happened today. Benjamin Hannon, who was the Met PC who was found guilty a few weeks ago of being a member of National Action, which is, of course, a prescribed neo-Nazi hate group with terrorist ambitions. He's been jailed for 4 years. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen if you are a member of National Action, and essentially want to impose fucking Nazism upon us all. With terrorist antics. Here's the thing, though. With the Met Police, I think you'll be lucky to encounter a policeman who isn't a fucking Nazi or a murdering rapist. Considering the recent headlines with the police, and as we all know, all cops are bastards. Why do I get the feeling that Benjamin Hannon is not going to be the last former Met officer who is going to be found out for having an association with the far right? Because let's be honest, the far right are attracted to a badge and a gun, or in this country's case, a badge and a truncheon, and a taser, and pepper spray, to beat up people, don't fit their image of how, the fascist superhuman should be, or what the fuck ever. Anyway, so, yeah, he's going to prison for 4 years. Good riddance. And talking of Nazis, the proddy Nazi Arlene Foster has announced her resignation as DUP leader. After there was, the headline is a little misleading. Conversion therapy has a bearing on why she is stepping down as the DUP. I think it was just the last straw. But essentially, the main reason is Brexit, and the fact that there is a between mainland Britain now and Northern Ireland, there is a trade barrier, and this inhibits the DUP wanking over their Union Jacks. In other words, this erodes our British identity. What the fuck ever. And to be honest, unionism is actually in a bit of a crisis at the moment because, at the last general election, the majority of MPs returned to Westminster from Northern Ireland were SDLP and Sinn Féin MPs, it's from the Catholic community wanting a united Ireland. And in the next 10 years, there are demographically going to be more Catholics than Protestants living in Northern Ireland. So yeah, but on the issue of conversion therapy, Arlene Foster's resignation driven by conversion therapy ban and the Northern Irish Protocol. So as I said, the conversion therapy did have basically, to remind people, there was a vote in the Northern Irish Parliament on banning conversion therapy without any exemptions, and the only party which voted against this were the DUP, which makes them look like the bigots that they fucking are, by the way. So it says here, Foster's sensational resignation as leader of the Ulster bigoted party. Yeah, I should always say Arlene Foster. The First Minister of Northern Ireland comes after days of internal wrangling within the Conservative political party over issues such as proposed conversion therapy ban and the Northern Irish Protocol. This is referring to the trade barrier between Northern Ireland and Britain. The new, which has come about due to the Brexit agreement, blah blah blah. The newsletter reported on Tuesday, the 27th of April, that 3/4 of the DUP members of the Northern Irish Assembly had signed a letter of no confidence in Foster over her handling of a number of issues. Jim Wells, a DUP member who lost the party whip in 2018, said last week's Stormont vote on a motion to ban conversion therapy caused issues within the party, while a significant majority of DUP members of the Northern Irish Assembly voted against the motion. Arlene Foster and 2 other senior ministers abstained. Oh, that's good for them. Sorry, but that's not good enough. No, sorry, unless you vote for it, yeah. And also you got to remember, she has said afterwards that she would seek, after this vote, said she would seek that there would be exemptions, including Pray the Gay Away. Wells also told the newsletter that the party members were unhappy that Diana Dodds attended a recent North-South ministerial meeting, despite the fact the party is currently boycotting such meetings over objections to the Northern Irish Protocol. Foster initially downplayed suggestions that her leadership was under threat on Tuesday, telling the Associated Press that she had bigger things to do than engage with the conversation. Speaking on BBC Radio Ulster's Stephen Nolan programme earlier this week, Jim Wells said there was a mass rebellion brewing after the DUP asked all members of the Northern Irish Assembly to abstain on conversion therapy. While Foster abstained, she later reaffirmed that the party would oppose any conversion therapy ban unless it included safeguards. In other words, exemptions so that churches can still torture LGBTQ people just a little bit for being LGBTQ on the basis that there's this a mystical sky daddy called God who doesn't really exist. Blah de blah de blah. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous that anybody would think that they could pray the gay. I'm sorry. Now, do you believe in fairy? Do people believe that there are fairies at the bottom of the garden instructing them to live their lives? No, if anyone said that, they would think they were, they were in serious need of psychiatric help, right? So why shouldn't it be any different for anybody who goes on about, God instructs them or Jesus, they hear the voice of Jesus. Usually when you hear voices in your head other than your own, that's, basically schizophrenia. Yeah, and you need to get psychiatric help for that. Anyways, so Arlene Foster insists she's not a homophobe, but she's given LGBT people plenty of reason to think otherwise. Well, yeah, exactly. Arlene Foster has resigned as the First Minister of Northern Ireland and as leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, leaving, or shall I say, the Ulster bigoted party, leaving behind a fractious legacy. Oh, by the way, do you know she's the DUP have been in existence for, I think, something like 50 years, and it was set up by Ian Never, No Surrender Paisley, and he was leader for fucking ever. And basically, he stepped down because of old age. Peter Robertson then took over, but then he had to step down because his wife was basically having an affair with an underage boy. And now you've had Arlene Foster. Yeah. I just still think it was funny that Peter Robertson's wife got caught with an underage. I mean, fuck. Aren't these people puritanical, prudes? Her resignation comes 6 years after she was elected leader of the ultra-conservative political party. In that time, Northern Ireland's LGBT plus community has been forced to fight relentlessly for equal rights, while Foster and her party repeatedly blocked change. Notably, Arlene Foster threw what were ultimately the smallest of crumbs to the LGBT plus community. Do you know what that reminds me of? Essentially, towards the end of apartheid, I remember P.W. Botha, who was president before F.W. de Klerk. He came over to Britain, right, and thought he would be welcomed with open arms. I mean, he was by Thatcher, but Thatcher was a racist piece of shit. But anyways, he wasn't by, basically there was a whole load of strikes to the day he arrived, I remember. But P.W. Botha thought that he'd be welcomed with open arms because, he had liberalised some of the apartheid rules. But, black people were still being treated as second-class citizens. This is the same sort of bullshit. It's like, we'll tinker just a little to make it look like we're progressively inching, towards equality. No, you're not. You want them treated as second-class citizens. Yeah, that's what you want, Arlie. Community. During her time as leader of the DUP, while some politicians made a name for themselves among queer people for their widely offensive remarks, Foster has ever so slightly more moderate in her approach. As I said, yeah. But the thing is, what she wants deep down. If she had her way, all us LGBTQ people would be put to fucking death. If she had her way, she'd basically enact fucking Gilead for real. Much was made of her decision in 2018 to speak at a Pink News reception in Stormont. Look, she only, how do I say, lip service, making her the first DUP leader to attend an event focusing on LGBT plus rights. As I said, she was just paying lip service because it made her look like she wasn't as much of a homophobic bigot as had been as she had been portrayed. But as I said, she wasn't kidding me. Northern Ireland's LGBT plus community wasn't exactly expecting much from that appearance. Foster had always made her opposition. You see, here's the thing: if you oppose LGBT plus rights, you are a homophobe. I'm not gonna mince my words. I am not gonna pull my punches. If you want to prevent LGBT plus people having the same rights as the rest of society, then you are a homophobic and transphobic bigot. There was widespread disappointment when she used her speech to defend the party's stance. You see, right, she goes to an LGBT plus, event and basically says, no, you gays and lesbians, you can't get married in Northern Ireland. Hold on. These people, the DUP, their identity is British. Well, if you want to be part of if you want to be part of this fucking country, right, you obey the laws of this country, right? And Northern Ireland was the last place in this country, right, for lesbians and gays to be able to have same-sex marriage. And it had to be done, and it was only done, right, when the Stormont Assembly broke down and there was direct rule was reimposed from Westminster for a time, and there was an amendment to a Northern Irish bill from a Labour MP, which which ensured that the LGBTQ community had the right to same-sex marriage in Northern Ireland. Yeah. And in a blow to queer voters, asked the LGBT plus community to respect her party's views. No, fuck off. I'm not respect. No one should ever respect fucking bigotry. It should always be fuck off bigotry. Just because we disagree on marriage does not mean that I don't value the LGBT. Well, you don't. If you're not prepared for them to have, for us. Sorry, I always said them. Oh God, cringe. It's a brain fart. I am very much LGBT plus, and I'm glad to be LGBT plus. Whatever. I don't value the LGBT community, just because I disagree on marriage does not mean that I don't value the LGBT plus community, and it's certainly not a zero-sum game as it is sometimes presented. And all I ask in return is that my party's views are also respected, if not agreed with, Foster said at the event. Here's the thing, I can't respect anybody, right, who opposes equality for LGBT plus people because they're hearing the voice of some mystical sky daddy, non-existent mystical sky daddy, I should say, in their head. Drum roll, God don't exist, right? But LGBTQ people do. Foster's speech at the Pink News reception was also was an isolated incident. In fact, she dedicated much of her time as First Minister and DUP leader to blocking same-sex marriage in Northern Ireland. Yeah. In 2016 Assembly elections, the DUP told voters they would defend marriage. The party also repeatedly used a petition of concern to block same-sex marriage in Northern Ireland, which stopped queer couples from marrying in the region until 2020, almost six years after the battle was won in England. Despite this opposition, Foster repeatedly and firmly denied that she was homophobic. Well, as I say, if you block LGBT plus people from having equality, right, then you are a homophobic bigot. End of. Speaking to the BBC in 2016, she said, if people can't see the nuance between our defending of marriage and gay rights, then I'm sorry. Well, the gay rights are, same-sex marriage. I'm sorry. They really need to look at themselves. She went on to argue that not every gay person wants equal marriage. Yeah, okay, there was that... oh, God, what was his name? The UKIP MEP in Scotland. Yeah, but he was UKIP. We're going to be talking about UKIP in a minute, by the way. Yes. Anyways, she went on to argue that no one wants equal marriage, who don't want to see marriage redefined, and are quite content to live in a partnership. Yeah, and there are plenty of heterosexual couples, quite content to live in a partnership, and the likes of you, Arlene, probably think they live in sin. That the same year, Foster hit out at the LGBT plus community for directing abuse at herself and the DUP colleagues online over their position to same-sex marriage. Well, generally, you're going to get that when you're trying to block people from having equality. Some of the abuse that is directed at me and my colleagues online is very, very vicious. And I think if activists want to have a conversation about where they are coming from, do they seriously think they are going to influence me by sending me abuse? She went on to suggest that the abuse or criticism, as some call it, would only serve to punish her in the opposite direction on LGBT plus rights, and urged the community to reflect on that. Yes, in 2017, Foster said it was complete nonsense to suggest the DUP had a problem with homophobia. It's pretty fucking evident they do. Despite the fact that Ian Paisley Jr. Once said he was repulsed by gay people, and Sammy Wilson. I always call him Sammy Williamson. I don't know why. Sammy Wilson refused to mark World AIDS Day because of his belief that HIV is a result of lifestyle choices. I mean, this is a guy who still thinks AIDS is the gay cancer. You can't get more homophobic than that. Speaking to ITV, Foster said there's been a lot of hyperbolic talk. There's a lot of hyperbole talked about our position on to the gay community. Much of it is complete and utter nonsense. I have to say, we take a particular view in relation to the definition of marriage that does not mean in any one way that we are homophobic. Well, as I said, Sammy Williamson still thinks that. I said it again, didn't I? Sammy Wilson. he thinks that AIDS is gay cancer. As I said, you can't get more homophobic than that. The same year, Foster told the newsletter that the DUP was being branded homophobic. Oh, geez, you block same-sex marriage. You have MPs who go around saying that essentially that AIDS is the gay cancer, and you wonder why you're being branded homophobic. But said nothing. You see, to her, like she thinks that homophobia would be burning LGBTQ people at the stake. That basically because her and her colleagues tolerate tolerate LGBTQ people actually breathing air, that they're not homophobic. No, my darling, you have to do a lot more than that. And as I say, you kept blocking, LGBTQ people having fucking equal rights, but said nothing could be further from the truth. As I said, you're a homophobe. It really does hurt me when people call me a homophobe. Well, I'm going to say it again. You're a fucking homophobe. Just because I stand up for the definition of marriage, which I believe in, and I think this debate has become very toxic. Yeah, and who's made it toxic? It's for you, nutball fucking, fundamentalist Christians. Arlene Foster continued fighting same-sex marriage even after Westminster made it a reality. Notably, for much of Foster's time as leader of the DUP, she was not actually officially the First Minister of Northern Ireland. In fact, power sharing at Stormont collapsed in 2017 following a spat between the DUP and Sinn Féin over a green energy scandal. One of the outcomes of the collapse of Stormont was that it allowed Westminster to hold a vote on same-sex marriage in Northern Ireland in July 2019. MPs voted overwhelmingly in favour of extending marriage rights to same-sex couples in the territory. And just like that, Arlene Foster's battle against equality was lost. The matter appeared to be settled, but that didn't stop Arlene Foster from continuing her crusade against same-sex marriage. In January 2020, she claimed that equality was being imposed on Northern Ireland, despite the fact that her party was simultaneously arguing that the territory should be treated the same as the rest of the UK in Brexit negotiations. Exactly. I'm glad that Pink News have pointed out that fucking hypocrisy. It was fitting, therefore, that when the first same-sex couple tied the knot in Northern Ireland just weeks later, they used the opportunity to deliver a firm rebuke against Foster. Speaking to Pink News at the time, Robin Peoples and Shani Edwards told the DUP leader that equal marriage was not being imposed on anybody. No, it's not. It's not being imposed on anybody. If Arlene Foster doesn't want to marry another woman, no one's telling her she has to. Yeah. For her job role, I just don't understand how she could say that and dictate to other people how to live their lives. Exactly. This is what they do. Respect our beliefs to impose, inequality upon you. To impose you being treated as a second-class citizen. Robin said it was not. It is not being forced on anyone. Anyone. The people had to fight for this for years. Sorry, badly written sentence. Foster never softened in her opposition to LGBT plus rights. Just weeks ago, during a libel trial against celebrity Dr. Caitlyn Jenner, Foster said she gets distressed when people call her homophobic and defended her anti-LGBT. That's it. She gets offended when people call her homophobic. Basically gets upset when people call, she gets upset when people call her homophobic and then defends her homophobic. She does, as I said, she thinks she's not a homophobe because she's allowing LGBTQ people to breathe the same air as she does. In fact, just allowing them to breathe, period. Views by claiming she has gay friends. Jeez, if gay people know Arlene Foster, if there are gay people who are friends with Arlene Foster, they don't need fucking enemies. I have many friends who are homosexual. They know my views on same-sex marriage. No shit. I mean, it's not like you dog whistle. It's more like a fucking bullhorn. And in any event, same-sex marriage is now the law here in Northern Ireland and has to be upheld. Well, at least that's big of you. I have never, in my own political utterances, said anything in connection with people who are homosexual. That's why I get quite upset when people call me a homo. You keep saying that, you oppose same-sex marriage. That is saying, political utterances about, gays and lesbians. While the DUP blocked progress on equal marriage for years, the issue of conversion therapy ultimately proved the straw that broke the camel's back for Foster's leadership. She had already been facing internal pressure to take a more hardline approach with the Northern Ireland Protocol. Excuse me. And MLAs and MPs were reportedly growing increasingly unhappy with her handling of the row. Last week, the Assembly voted overwhelmingly in favour of a motion calling for conversion therapy to be banned in Northern Ireland. Needless to say, the DUP opposed the motion, as I've pointed out, and the party even tabled an amendment to remove the line that said it is fundamentally wrong to view our LGBTQ community as requiring a fix or a cure. The fact that the DUP seems to think that LGBTQ people need to be fixed or cured, is homophobic. And they wonder why we're branded as homophobic. Well, why not? As I said, the DUP, the Ulster bigoted party. Speaking on BBC Ulster, BBC Radio Ulster after the event, we've covered this. Okay, so she's stepping down. And I would imagine there's a huge cheer from the LGBTQ plus community. Well, not all of them. No. Okay. So, that is obviously Arlene Foster, and you're probably wondering who's that standing next to them. That's Nikki Sinclair. Now, some of you might remember Nikki Sinclair was the UKIP MEP elected for the West Midlands back in 2009. But resigned actually not long after. Resigned from UKIP not long afterwards, citing racism and homophobia. I think she was at that time. She was out as a lesbian. She wasn't out as trans at that point. We'll get to that. Which I find the accusation that UKIP's racist really funny because Nikki's not fond of gypsies. She's led campaigns to have gypsies evicted from various pieces of land, and also UKIP. I mean, for fuck's sake, you must be deaf and dumb and blind, whatever, not to have seen that UKIP was fucking racist. Yeah, you always get those people. I mean, I guess Nikki might have been one of those people who's kind of like, cognitive fucking distancing, or in denial, utter denial that that UKIP was racist. I mean, the spew you used to get from UKIPers was, we just want to, we just campaigning to leave the EU. That's got nothing to do, we're not racist. We just want to leave the EU. Well, what have I always said about Brexit? Not every person who voted for Brexit was a racist, but every racist voted for Brexit. Okay? Yeah, vast majority of people who were members of UKIP back then and now, it still exists, were bigots. Now, as I said, Nikki was out at that time as a lesbian, left citing homophobia and racism. Now, around about 2012, someone showed me a video of Nikki. She was on the Daily Politics show, which is now Politics Live. And they asked me, is she trans? And I don't know. Obviously, I could see the telltale signs, and I knew she was. But I said to them I didn't know, because I'm not going to help somebody if they don't want to be known, if they don't want, if they don't want anyone to know they're trans. Funny enough, 18 months later, she did come out as trans. Came out as trans, I guess is the right. I mean, the thing is, it's not like they'd started their transition. They'd transitioned many years before. But basically, they just confirmed that they were trans. Now, and I remember actually another trans woman who lived in the West Midlands, someone called Anwen Munston, who's actually a Labour councillor on Wolverhampton Council, said to me they had met them. And they had asked them to their face, were they trans? And Nikki had said no. Interesting, that. Okay, it's her choice, when she decided to tell people, yeah, I'm trans. And she said there had been transphobia in UK. Well, it doesn't fucking surprise me. Transphobia and homophobia, racism, none of it fucking surprises me with UKIP. I mean, after all, this was the party whose members blamed flooding on gay marriage. Do I need to go on about all the homophobic and xenophobic shit Nigel Farage spouted, when he was UKIP leader, and still spouts to this day? Anyways, so as you can see, this is Nikki posing with Arlene Foster, and you kind of think, what the fucking fuck, right? Having said that, there is a video on YouTube with Nikki talking to a certain Katie Hopkins. Yeah, you can go and find that one for yourself. I don't show Katie Hopkins on this. I don't share Katie Hopkins videos on this channel unless I can help it. Other than the one which Josh Peters made. He's the guy who pranked her and gave her that award for being a cunt. Yeah, fellow South African YouTuber. Yeah, good bloke. Anyways, so I challenged Nikki about this, and this isn't the first time me and Nikki have crossed swords, so to speak. About 4 years ago, I remember, she posted up that she was voting Tory. It was 2017 general election. To which my response was, hey, Nikki, you got your surgery on the NHS, but you don't seem to give a shit about any other trans person getting their surgery on the NHS because you're voting Tory. I mean, the Tories have only suddenly fallen in love with the NHS in the last year. They get them out of the hole they dug themselves with COVID. So, anyways, I did challenge her. And every fucking time I have challenged Nikki, she acts like a fucking snowflake. And, well, this was no different. Hold on a second. I just got to check on something. Right. Sorry. No worries. Okay, yes. Back to Nikki Sinclair. So, I basically said she's a homophobic. This basically she'd posted up, lauding fucking Arlene Foster. And I responded by, she's a homophobic bigot Good frigging riddance. The sad thing is she's likely to be replaced by another bigot. Her response was, "Shut up, you sad bigot." How am I the one who's a bigot? I'm the one who goes into fight for fucking diversity, Nikki. Right? Unlike you, who doesn't seem to give a shit about anyone else but your fucking self. Right? I mean, I am sick and tired of these fucking right-wing fucking trans women being allowed anywhere near a fucking platform and a microphone. All right? You know, whether it fucking her, I mean, Nikki's fairly quiet these days, but yeah, I'm thinking about India Willoughby or fucking Blair White or fucking Kelly Maloney, Caitlyn Jenner. I mean, some people have made the comparison, that Nikki was sort of the our version of Caitlyn Jenner. Not quite, I don't think. But anyways, my response to that is, I'm a bigot. Question mark. I need to get a life. Hey, I'm not the one who's dumb enough to get into bed with fascists and then acts like an utter snowflake when people point out it's not in my best interest to do so. She then responds, "I see you are still struggling with your mental..." Right, so she starts gaslighting me, and you grasp with reality. I wish you the well in getting the treatment you evidently need. Don't fucking gaslight me was my response. And as for grasp on reality, you're the one who was a member of UKIP, chock full of QAnon dipshits who think Jews like me are reptilians in disguise and have access to a giant space. Well, they are. The kind. Yeah, they are the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, believe me. But without the access to guns in this country. I mean, yeah, it's kind of thankful we have quite strict laws on gun ownership in this country when you think of UKIP, innit? Geez, you no-life bigot, go away. No, I'm not going away. Then she posts a GIF saying I'm a loon. You call me a loon. I'm not the one pictured standing next to a bigot who supports Pray the Gay Away because they reckon some mystical non-existent sky daddy called God reckons there's something typo there wrong with you if you're LGBTQ. Please get help for your mental health. Go away, loon. Yeah, she's basically calling me a lunatic. Well, I think, I mean, Nikki's definitely a cunt, and a rather nasty true scum cunt. At that, when she's alone, well, I mean, I know which side my bread is buttered. I don't get into bed with fucking fascists. People who would gladly have me pushed onto some cattle truck and ship me off to the fucking gas ovens. But hey, she actually just continued basically calling me a loon. Okay, she's basically telling me to fuck off. I know that, but hey, But the thing is, this is a person who supposedly has a degree in law and was elected by the voters of West Midland to represent them as an MEP. And you kind of think, she acts like a fucking child. She won't... And this isn't the first time, as I said, we've clashed. And every fucking time, she just refuses to talk about the issue. Right? She just descends into fucking abuse. Gaslighting and fucking ableism here. Well, anyways. I do think she's a rather sad individual. As I said in that one of those posts on Nikki's wall, that the sad thing is, Arlene Foster's only going to be replaced with another, homophobic, racist bigot. And well, the DUP politician, and this is all from Pink News, by the way. Of course, I have to keep now saying that because hopefully we're going to be doing an audio version of this show starting from next week. More of which later. The DUP politician tipped to succeed Arlene Foster has a long history of opposing LGBT plus rights. DUP politician Edwin Poots is being tipped as the potential successor to Arlene Foster after she announced that she was stepping down. The former health minister has a long history of opposing LGBT plus rights, but he has already been named by political pundits as a potential future leader of the Democratic Unionist Party. No, you mean the Ulster bigoted party. I'll tell you what, I will stop calling them the Democratic Unionist Party when they stop being bigots. Stop being bigots, sorry. Edwin Poots, who also served as both Minister of the Environment, also served as Minister of the Environment, is a young Earth creation. Oh my God. Thank goodness he wasn't the Minister of Science. I mean, he was the Minister of Health. Did he think that reading Bible scripture at a cancer patient was going to get them well? Who doesn't believe in evolution? Yeah, creationists don't. Throughout his political career, he has repeatedly courted controversy for his barbed remarks about the LGBT plus community, as well as poorly received comment for Arlene Foster's most important job to remain that of. Hold on, yeah. So, well, basically, he's saying here that women should stay at home. Remained that of a wife, mother, and daughter when she became leader of the DUP. Yeah, he's basically saying women should stay at home. This is another guy who would gladly have us have Gilead, enacted on Earth for fucking real. Poots' war with the LGBT plus community began in earnest in 2012 when he fought voraciously to stop gay and bisexual men from donating blood in Northern Ireland. Oh yeah. Speaking to the BBC at the time, Poots said, "I think that people who engage in high-risk sexual behaviour in general should be excluded from giving blood." So what about all those religious ministers who are paedophiles then? Huh? And so someone who has sex with somebody in Africa or sex with prostitutes, that's racist, by the way. Basically saying that, yes, there are high levels in some parts of Africa of HIV. I know that. But it's to say the entire African fucking continent, is a cesspool of HIV. Is just what she's implying is just racist. Sex with prostitutes, you're far less likely to ever get anything from a sex worker. They get themselves thoroughly checked out. Obviously, I do know some people who have worked in the sex industry, and I know that they are very fastidious about getting checked out for sexual transmitted diseases. I am very reluctant about those people being able to give blood. In 2013, it emerged that as health minister, Poots had used thousands in public funds to bid to stop same-sex couples from legally adopting children. Poots got on the wrong side of Northern Ireland's LGBT plus community when he announced that he was appealing the 2012 High Court ruling that declared the territory was discriminating against same-sex couples in civil partnerships by not allowing them to dot. He failed the legal challenge, which cost the taxpayer £40,000. That might sound a lot of money, but actually it's relatively small when it comes to public expenditure, funny enough. Defending but nevertheless, that is £40,000, which could have been better spent elsewhere. Defending his anti-LGBT plus stance at the time, Poots said Shame on the courts for going down the most constantly going down the road of constantly attacking Christian principles, Christian ethics, Christian morals, which his society has based on and gave us a very good foundation. In other words, he wants Gilead. He wants Gilead for real. As a speculation mounted this week, Arlene Foster was sorry. A speculation mounted this week that Arlene Foster was set to be ousted as leader of the DUP. Poots was quickly named as a potential successor. While Foster will be remembered by many within the LGBT plus community as a polarizing force who often reaffirmed her party's anti-gay views, can we just say what they are? Homophobic views. Some within the DUP viewed her as progressive. Oh, she was progressive because she wasn't going to burn LGBTQ people at the stake. Yeah, as I've explained before. If Poots becomes the next leader of the Ulster bigoted party, and as a result, the next First Minister of Northern Ireland, he is likely to bring the party even further to the right. Oh, jeez. Yeah. So, Arlene Foster was considered moderately homophobic. This guy is militantly homophobic. That's a sad thing. With all that's happened with Arlene Foster. So, turning to Scotland, of course, next week there are, of course, elections to the Scottish Parliament. And the Scottish Green Party reveals a comprehensive plan to tackle resurgence of homophobia. And transphobia. I'm going to say this, right? Yeah, sure. Keir Starmer, and I've got one other story coming up about another Labour member who's said that conversion therapy should be banned without exemptions. But that's the least I expect from Labour, right? Yeah, they really don't seem enthusiastically pro-LGBTQ these days. But the Green Party do, right? The Green Party have been the most vocal party I've heard, right, in support of LGBTQ rights over the last year. Obviously, COVID, has had an effect upon all this. I mean, it's hilarious when you get these right wingers who go to me, there are more important things than LGBTQ rights at the moment, referring to COVID, of course. And the thing that makes me laugh is these are the people who tend to think that COVID is a hoax. Check your fucking hypocrisy. The Scottish Green Party's LGBT plus group, Rainbow Greens, has produced a comprehensive LGBT plus manifesto in the face of homophobia and transphobia resurgence. The party has long been clear about its pro-LGBT plus rights stance. Yeah, you see, what I'm saying about Labour is they don't seem to be. It used to be with LGBT with Labour, but they had a great joy for being pro LGBT Q, but now they don't. They don't seem to have that enthusiasm anymore. But the Green Party do, and I do say to all trans people out there, you really need to start looking at the Green Party. I know some say, well, don't I have a transphobic issue? There are transphobic members, granted. Yes, I do know about them. But Labour also has, its issue with transphobia, and right, I would go as far to say that Labour has a bigger issue with transphobia than it does with anti-Semitism. From my experience of being a Labour Party member, and someone who's also, as well as being trans, is also Jewish. Anyway, so the party has long been clear about its pro-LGBT plus rights stance, and co-leaders Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater launched their leadership in 2019 with a renewed drive to get more non-binary folk into politics. Yeah. We need more trans and non-binary people in politics. We still have not got Nikki Sinclair was elected to the European Parliament, and that was a first, for a trans woman. But we still have not got any trans and non-binary people elected to Westminster. It's about fucking time we did. Okay, Angela Eagle was the first lesbian, and that was in 1992. The first open lesbian, I should say. The first gay member of the cabinet was Chris Smith, wasn't it? And that was 1997. Those accomplishments were a long time ago. It's time we, I've known several trans people who have stood for Parliament, not just for Labour. I mean, Helen Belcher, I know, stood for the Liberal Democrats, and obviously the Tories have actually had, believe it or not, the odd trans candidate, and well, none have been successful, and I just think it's sad. We do need, the way to sort of get trans voices heard more is to get a trans person elected to Westminster. They will then have a legitimate fucking platform and will be heard. I guess people said, would I support a trans woman if they stood for if they won an election to be a Tory MP? Well, it depends. I would have to look at their, the kind of stuff they say about LGBTQ stuff. But yeah, I would like, I would just like it from any of the parties to basically help trans people get some political representation at Westminster. Harvey, who became the first ever openly bisexual MSP in 2003, told Pink News that Scotland and the UK as a whole has been experiencing a resurgence of homophobia and transphobia, particularly transphobia, don't I fucking know it, the likes of which most of us can't remember, and that we are seeing our community's human rights under greater threat than previous years. Yeah, because Boris doesn't give a shit. I mean, look, if he doesn't give a shit about bodies piling up, then what makes anyone think that Boris is going to care about LGBTQ rights? This, he said, means politicians need to be crystal clear about LGBT plus rights. I think it's important that political parties say very clearly where they stand, he said. I think our community should be a lot less willing to tolerate the idea that our human rights are some kind of optional extra. But yeah, fuck it. I don't want fucking straight cisgendered people fucking thinking, oh, we grant you the right to fucking have equality. No, you don't grant the right for us to have a fucking equality. We fight for the fucking right to have equality. We should have equality, okay? That is just. I think we should be saying that homophobia and transphobia are unacceptable in our politics as racism, misogyny and sectarianism. Yeah. As Scotland prepares for the 2021 Scottish Parliament election on 6th of May, the Rainbow Greens have laid out specific aims for the LGBT plus aims for LGBT plus rights in healthcare, education, law, sports, and COVID-19 recovery, in a wide-ranging manifesto. One of the areas where LGBT plus folk especially trans and non-binary people, face the most significant barriers in health and social is the most significant barriers is health and social care. Yeah. You see, this is why, and I mean, this is the same, in the United States. This is why I really am not keen on Caitlyn Jenner running for the governor of California, because she talks about, she said she represents the LGBTQ community, yet, right, she believes in small government and low taxes and deregulation. She doesn't believe in, universal healthcare. She probably thinks that, all trans people can afford what she does. Yeah. And if they can't, well, then tough shit. The one thing you keep hearing from one trans person to another is, better healthcare. They need, what is the waiting list at fucking the Charing Cross Gender Identity Clinic now? 3 fucking years or something crazy amount. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was only it was about a year. Well, actually, no, it was less. No, hold on, I got that wrong. It was about 8 months. Yeah. Rainbow Greens say in their manifesto that the priorities in this area include a ban on conversion therapy, and unnecessary surgeries on intersex children, access to fertility services, equal blood donation policy, and enhanced mental health provision across all sectors for LGBT plus and intersex people. The other thing I would say about mental health provision, there definitely needs to be a greater provision for mental health care provision. But the thing I was going to say is that if we brought in bigger penalties for people who wage and transphobic hate, you would find that a lot of trans people's mental health would probably improve. Let's just say that. The group promised to focus specifically on promoting on informed consent model for trans healthcare to replace the current gatekeeping model. This means gender affirming healthcare services would focus on individual and their knowledge about their own bodies and needs, other than requiring them to prove their gender identity to healthcare professionals. The Greens also said, which, let's face it, this is one of the problems truth scummers have, right? Because the informed consent model wasn't around when they had to validate their fucking gender identity to a psychiatrist, which they should never have had to have done, as far as I'm concerned. But they've got so much fucking sour grapes about it that they think everyone else should, rather than think, hey, let's improve things so people don't have to go through the same fucking trauma as me. You see, that's my opinion. Sure, I've suffered a great deal of trauma from gender dysphoria, but I'm not going to want anyone else to suffer from that fucking trauma. And I will work towards them not having to. The Greens also said that they would continue to push for gender identity, for a gender identity clinic waiting lists, which in some cases are years long, to fall in line with the 18-week NHS standard. In Glasgow, the waiting time just for a first appointment at a gender identity clinic is 3 years, says Harvey. Well, I think it's the same down in Charing Cross. This is all very, very good to hear from the Greens. Why aren't we hearing this from fucking Labour? That's my question. I mean, aren't they meant to be the party of equality and social justice? Anyways, it's been revealed that the Scottish Tory leader, Douglas Ross, would have voted against same-sex marriage if he had been an MSP. Well, Tories don't change their spots, do they? If he had been an MSP at the time, Scottish Conservative Party leader Douglas Ross would have voted against same-sex marriage. It has been revealed. Jeez. So we've gone from the leader of the Scottish Tories, Ruth Davidson, an open lesbian who has spoken up for LGBT plus people on numerous occasions. In fact, just mentioned we were talking about Arlene Foster. Arlene Foster, and the Ulster bigoted body. Well, funny enough, after the 2017 general election, when Theresa May lost her majority, of course, the Tories needed the votes of the DUP in Parliament, right? And by the way, let's just remember that there was 10 DUP 10 getting tongue tied here, 10 DUP MPs, each one costing the Tories £100 million. Yeah, they gave an extra billion in funding to Northern Ireland. So each DUP MP cost £100 million. And I remember Ruth Davidson basically got on the phone to Theresa May and said, "You're not throwing LGBTQ rights under the bus, on this deal." And Theresa May didn't. But Ruth Davidson seemed to be the one nation Tory, kind of one nation Tory. I find far less offensive than most other Tories, right? They're still a Tory, and I find all Tories offensive. But they were, one nation Tories. I have less of an issue with. Anyway, so we've gone from Ruth Davidson, pro LGBTQ, to this wanker who would have voted against same-sex marriage. Yeah, we're not progressing here, are we? Same-sex marriage was legalised in Scotland in 2014 when Ross was in the early stages of his political career on Moray Council. According to the Daily Record, in an unearthed article for the Northern Scot newspaper, local figures were interviewed about the historic victory for LGBT plus rights. The newspaper reported that the Conservative councillor said he would personally have voted against the bill, and Ross was quoted as saying, "If we are to recognise the momentous achievement, we should also recognise the hundreds of thousands of people who opposed the legislation." Oh, you mean the hundreds of thousands of bigots? No, sorry, not prepared to I recognise there are bigots, but I don't recognise any valid, any of their arguments being valid. He added, "We need to recognise both sides of the." All right, so we need to recognise we need to hear both sides of the argument on whether LGBTQ people should be treated as second-class citizens. Okay, let's have a debate on whether the Holocaust happened. Yeah. We can get David Irving in. It's just, I know some people say I'm being hyperbolic, but the thing is about this both sides of the argument debate. There's both sides of the argument with everything. Well then, every time the BBC talks about the Holocaust, they should have a Holocaust denier on to give both sides of the argument. You're being stupid. You are being fucking stupid when you say there are both sides of the argument for having LGBTQ people treated as second-class citizens, because there's no fucking argument against LGBTQ people being treated as second-class citizens. Because you always get the Tories, they're not treated as second-class citizens. Well, then why do you want to block them having marriage equality? Because by blocking them having marriage equality, you are blocking them having the rights of any, cis normative straight whatever. You're basically blocking them to having the same rights as any cis normative straight person. Okay, and that's wrong. Okay, everybody should have equality. He now says he fully supports same-sex marriage. Yeah, and Boris Johnson says that he supports the LGBTQ community and that he's going to ban conversion therapy. Yeah, everything he's done in regards to LGBTQ policy, well, policies which affect LGBTQ people since he walked through the door of number 10, tells a different fucking story. Yeah? I mean, we keep being told, by the Tories, they're going to ban conversion therapy. Yeah, the last time their proposals, had more fucking holes in it than a fucking sieve. I mean, the amount of fucking exemptions, it wouldn't be worth the paper it was printed on. And that is a tactic by Boris Johnson's government, right? To then say, oh, well, fuck it, we won't go through it with it then. So that basically they get they keep on getting the donations from Christian fucking fundamentalists. Yeah, so the Scottish Labour will outlaw conversion therapy and reform gender laws, candidate vows. Kieran O'Neill is Secretary of LGBT plus Labour. He's standing to be Scottish Labour and Cooperative MSP for Glasgow, Murray Hill and Springbourne in the 6th of May elections. The week... I can never pronounce his name. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to put the reader on because I don't want to butcher this guy's name. All right. I should just do this as a matter of course, but,
This week Anas Sarwar launched Scottish Labour's National Recovery Plan. He was clear to say that it's not a usual election manifesto. It's a route map to building a better, fairer and more progressive Scotland from the ashes of COVID-19. In Anas, Scotland's LGBT+ community have a phenomenal ally. Not just because he is a passionate advocate for equality, but because he knows what discrimination looks like. He has had to deal with some pretty awful things over his time in public life, and he is absolutely resolute that the fight against bigotry and hatred isn't a fight for any single group but a fight for all of us. He will make sure that the voices often not heard in our public debate will be at the table and will have a say. When it comes to our National Recovery Plan, it's without a doubt the biggest and boldest offer from Labour to the people of Scotland in the history of devolution. But it's also the most ambitious in terms of LGBT+ rights, certainly in our party's history. We are unequivocal in our support for reforming the Gender Recognition Act with an explicit commitment to demedicalise the process, as well as providing legal recognition for non-binary people. It should not have taken this long, but we are clear in the next Parliament, Labour and...
Right, I should explain something, because I know some people say, well, why do I criticise Keir Starmer for not being this steadfast in support of LGBTQ rights? And also, some people say, well, if Scottish Labour are this pro-LGBTQ, Keir Starmer must be. No. Scottish Labour are separate from the rest of the Labour Party, and everything Keir Starmer has said, other than, he said he did support there being a ban on conversion therapy, but as I said, that was the least I expected from Keir Starmer. But every time he's been asked about trans rights, he sits on the fucking fence about it. So, it's good to hear this from at least Scottish Labour, but I still say vote Green. There are other reasons I would say that as well. but even on LGBTQ stuff, I say vote green. Now, this was actually posted through a friend of mine's letterbox in Glasgow. Yes, the Scottish Family Party. Now, can I just say, family, as I said here, should be replaced with fascist. Just, we value families. We respect life. There's, obviously an anti-abortion dog whistle. We value families. Anti-LGBTQ. We protect children. Yet again, dog whistle against trans people and against, trans youth getting treatment. We support parenting. Academic rigor. I always find it hilarious when fucking Christian fundamentalists go on about we demand academic ridicule. No, you don't. You want people to be taught that the Earth was created in 7 fucking days in fucking schools. How's that academic? No, that's just a load of gibberish which was written in a crusty old book. We promote marriage. We protect free speech. All right, you protect free speech. Fuck Christians. They are. I said it. We oppose transgender ideology. You see, this is... You can tell they're far right. The far right, I mean, if it's not fucking cultural fucking Marxism or Lenin which are obviously the whole cultural Marxism thing is an anti-Semitic dog whistle. But they always seem to think that the left have this nefarious agenda to impose ideologies on people. There's no such thing as a fucking transgender ideology. Look, fuck me. I've been to so many fucking trans activist meetings, I can tell you that, obviously there are things trans people will agree on, please don't kill us, being one of them. But generally, trying to get trans people to agree on shit is like trying to herd cats. So how can it be a fucking ideology? There is a medical condition called gender dysphoria. Why don't you look it up? It's not an ideology, it's a medical condition. There is a difference, So, yeah, the Scottish Fascist Party. Oh, sorry, I meant Scottish Family. No, I actually do mean Scottish Fascist Party. Obviously, they're not going to win any seats. However, of course, we have the Alba Party, which is kind of I guess you could say they are, they're Alex Salmond's narcissistic ego trip to prolong his fucking political career. But they are now trying to set themselves up as sort of the conservative Scottish nationalist party. So if you want, you want Scottish independence, but you're a bit socially conservative, that's the pitch Alex Salmond is pitching. And, well, of course, that means a whole load of transphobia. And sometimes I wonder if there is a difference, but Alex Salmond, has made it very clear they are appealing to fucking transphobes, from the fucking off. Yeah. Anyways, so this is a piece of good news of sorts. UK pride groups unite against anti-trans LGBT alliance. Why can't we just call the Pink News is just always so polite. The LGBT alliance is a transphobic hate group being granted charitable status. So dozens of UK LGBT plus pride organisations have united against the LGBT alliance being recognised as a charity. Yeah. And I'm still expecting that the Charities Commission will be granting the Ku Klux Klan charitable status sometime soon. I mean, if the LGB Alliance can preach cis supremacy, then they and be class and get charitable status, then hey, why can't the Ku Klux Klan preach white supremacy and get charitable status? Last week, rage ripped through the queer community after the government's charity regulators at the Charity Commission for England and Wales officially granted charity status to the anti-trans group. The decision was quickly condemned by the LGBT plus groups, including Stonewall and Mermaids. Please do support Mermaids. They do great work in supporting trans youth. I so wish they were around when I was growing up. Bewildered by how an organisation that so loudly seeks to divide could be granted charity status. In the latest wave of backlash, the UK Pride Organisers Network released a letter signed by more than 50 Pride and queer event organisers opposing the move Thursday afternoon. This letter was signed on Thursday. Signatures range from Pride in London. So I hope, if Pride in London have signed this letter, that they will block the LGB Alliance having a slot on the Pride Parade. The Bristol Pride to Trans Pride Brighton, good, and Trans Pride Northern Ireland, as well as queer radio stations and sexual health services, service providers. Pride organisers in Exmouth, Warwickshire, Oxford, Cornwall, Coventry, and Portsmouth also signed, as did Northern Pride, the largest Pride event in North East England. Among other, I always get that word wrong, multi-episcopal and county-wide groups. Other member prides have also stood with trans communities. Our members, our member prides have always stood with trans communities, and always will. The joint statement reads. There's the statement. We will continue our ongoing fight for visibility, unity, and equality for all. Trans rights are human rights, together as one. Yeah. The LGB Alliance charity status needs to be revoked immediately. Yes, it does. Co-chairs Jenny Dewsnap. All right, I'm going to put the reader on.
Co-chairs Jenny Dewsnap and Lee Bowditch wrote that the network's members are calling upon the Charity Commission to reverse their decision to award the organisation its charity status. We know the LGB Alliance does not promote equality, diversity and human rights as stipulated in the purposes of the organisation, they wrote. LGB Alliance is seen as a political campaign organisation with their main aim to remove trans people from our LGBT+ community and block trans rights, the association said, quoting a statement from one of its signatories, Pride in London. LGB Alliance has campaigned against the Gender Recognition Act and called for the Equality Act to be reviewed around same-sex rights.
Yeah. Well, we know that they are they're bigots. I mean, it's been found out that they've got neo-Nazi fucking members.
The letter also urged its members to reach out to local lawmakers and the Charity Commission, whether through social media or online forms, to ensure they are aware of your views and concerns. Among the countless signatories was Drag Queen Storytime UK, which organises children's events hosted by drag queens. We oppose this decision by the Charity Commission vehemently, Sab Samuel, who runs the group, said in a statement to the press. The LGB Alliance have been on numerous occasions the evil witch behind the frayed curtain of countless hate campaigns towards trans people and trans activists. The LGBT Alliance charity status needs to be revoked immediately. Pride in London. Queer MPs, the LGBT plus wings of major political parties and activists. It denies that it is transphobic. The lobbying group has been grilled by the very community it...
Hold on. Of course it's going to fucking deny it's transphobic. Nazis denied they're Nazis. I'm just going to say this. It's good to see that all the Pride organisations, basically speaking out against the LGBT Alliance. But I'm going to say this again. I hope I don't see any LGBT Alliance group parading anywhere in any fucking Pride in this fucking country. And the reason I'm making this point is that a few years ago, UKIP's LGBTQ group were actually barred from marching in Pride in London. And yet they did. In fact, they muscled in front of... I mean, talk about fucking irony. They muscled in front of a group which supports LGBTQ immigrants. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah. Right. So the Tories are cutting funding to fight AIDS and HIV by more than 10 million. This is a sign of the times, folks. Austerity, the Tories might deny it, right? But we all know austerity's on its way. Now, obviously, a lot of money has been put into COVID, but a lot of money needs to be put into, to fight AIDS and HIV, because, particularly abroad. The thing is, right, I mean, there doesn't seem to be much concern at the moment about what's happening in India with COVID, right? And I'm going to say it. It's because people are racist. Yeah? It's, to them it's bongo land, and they don't have, they're not white. So why should they care? That's what most people are probably thinking, right? And I'm going to say this. Where's your fucking humanity? Just as the same about people dying of HIV and AIDS in the developing world, right? Okay. Now, obviously, HIV is now a treatable illness. Yeah, I've always said the irony about Freddie Mercury is if he had contracted HIV 5 years later, he'd still be alive, because you've got obviously combination therapies which can stave off AIDS. But what I'm trying to say here is they are playing with fire here, right? People don't think that things like AIDS and HIV affect people here, right? Well, you drop the funding in the developing world, and we'll see, right? I'm just going to say that. So yeah, as I mentioned at the top of the show, President Biden calls trans youth brave in historic speech to the joint session of Congress. Yes, he made his State of the Union address, and this is what he said on the issue of trans.
Congress will get to my desk the Equality Act to protect LGBTQ Americans.
Can I just say that would be lovely, but I don't think there's enough. I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to persuade enough Republicans to get that through the Senate.
For all transgender Americans watching at home, especially young people, you're so brave. I want you to know your president has your back. I also hope.
So, yeah. Now, so far, I'm going to say this about Joe Biden's, because it's obviously 100 days since his inauguration. And for some reason, they always sort of measure, you know, whether a president's been has been initially successful by his by their first 100 days. You know, I still hope that one day there will be a female president. Anyways, or a non-binary president, or a trans president. You know, you never know. Anyways, so I found this in Pink News. 10 times Joe Biden stood up for LGBT plus rights in his first 100 days. So, yeah, let's get on with this. So I'll just jump into the points they're going to make. Hold on. Right, I'll do the reader. Hey, come on. Why can't you...
Laws to prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. 1. Biden signed the most substantive LGBT+ executive order in history. On his first day, the groundbreaking executive order directed all federal agencies that enforce federal laws to prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. The order reinforced Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and required the federal government not to discriminate based on sexual orientation or gender identity. As such, the Biden administration reassured the countless LGBT+ staffers at federal agencies that the government will not discriminate against them in the workplace. The executive order also required that the head of each agency review all existing regulations, guidance documents, programs and policies to ensure that they comply with the order. The order overturned a 23-page memo from John Dawkins, head of the Civil Rights Division in Trump's Department of Justice, issued just days before the Biden administration would come into the office. The memo sought to warp the landmark Supreme Court ruling in Bostock v. Clayton County, a ruling which established employers can't discriminate based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Dawkins' memo sought to carve out exceptions from the ruling, arguing that religious people should still be free to discriminate against LGBT+ employees.
Yeah, you see, when Republicans talk about freedom, what they're really talking about is Christians having the freedom to be bigots towards LGBTQ people. And no, they shouldn't have that fucking freedom. Anyways, they shouldn't have the right to be able to persecute and treat LGBTQ people as second-class citizens. I am very militant on this point. Number 2, he repealed Trump's trans military ban. I'm not the greatest fan of the military-industrial complex, but hey, look, if everyone else can, can be stupid enough to pick up a gun and go and fight some war for oil, then why shouldn't trans people? Yeah. Biden's cabinet is one of the most inclusive in history. Yeah, it is. So let's. I'll go through this one.
The president kicked off his term by assembling one of the most LGBT+ inclusive cabinets in history. This includes the first openly gay Senate-confirmed cabinet official, Pete Buttigieg. He also nominated trailblazing trans Dr. Rachel Levine to the role of Assistant Secretary of Health. On Friday, the 23rd of April, he also announced plans to nominate 2 LGBT+ officials to high-ranking posts in the Department of Defense. President Joe Biden said he intended to nominate Brenda Sue Fulton, a lesbian activist who fought to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, to the role of Assistant Secretary for Manpower and Reserve Affairs.
The conservative sort of the take on this is, why is this important? Why is it important that there's LGBTQ people in the cabinet? The people should be picked on their merits, not because they're LGBTQ. Well, they are picked on their merits, but the fact that you have to ask why is it important to the LGBTQ community, it's because we've been under fucking representative thanks to conservative cunts like you. So yeah, I can't deny that Biden has definitely made strides to make his cabinet diverse.
4. He killed off a Trump proposal to let homeless shelters discriminate. The Biden administration announced on the 22nd of April that it would withdraw the rule. In a statement, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, said the Trump administration's rule change would have weakened the Equal Access Rule, which ensures people can access publicly funded shelters and services regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge said the organization is open for business for all, and that no person should be denied access to housing or other critical services because of their gender identity.
No. And I actually do know, unfortunately, a couple of trans people in America who have been made homeless because of being trans, families kicking them out and, various other things, and such as like that. And, what Trump did was that's just the lowest of the fucking low. Yeah, it really does show that Trump doesn't really care if trans people drop dead. In fact, if he'd had his way, he would have set up fucking extermination camps and had all trans people shipped up to them. Because that would definitely please the fucking evangelical Christian nutcase fucking base of his. So number 5, Biden protected LGBT plus students. I don't know if he's been able to protect them from Caitlyn Bennett, rampaging around fucking college campuses, harassing them, but,
5. Biden protected LGBT plus students. In a memo to federal agencies published earlier this month, the Biden administration confirmed that the 1972 civil rights law known as Title IX should be read as covering LGBT plus students. This means federal law now prohibits discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sexuality in all federally funded education institutions in the U.S. Title IX was enacted as a follow-up to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and bans discrimination based on sex in education in 2017. Then Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos withdrew Obama-era guidance which stipulated Title IX covered LGBT plus students. DeVos argued at the time that the discrimination protections had been a very huge example of overreach under Obama.
Now, this is, for me, one of the most important things he's done. I live outside the United States, so I would say this.
6. He pledged to restore America's global leadership on LGBT plus rights. President Biden signed a historic memorandum calling for the worldwide protection of LGBT plus rights in February. Biden said it was the intention of his administration to repair our moral leadership and reinvigorate our leadership on the LGBTQI issues and do it internationally. We'll ensure diplomacy and foreign assistance are working to promote the rights of those individuals included by combating criminalization and protecting the LGBTQ refugees and asylum seekers, he promised. Reporting on LGBT plus issues abroad decreased by a shocking 21% under the Trump administration. Biden promised to restore the country's global leadership on LGBT plus issues, including heading up a coalition of like-minded governments and organizations who will use America's full range of diplomatic tools to push for the decriminalization of homosexuality.
Yeah, you see, I'm hoping that memorandum does actually feed into Biden's foreign policy, which could affect the lives of millions of LGBTQ people around the world beneficially, right? Because here's the thing, right? Let's just say that certain governments got away with being anti-LGBTQ during Trump's tenure in the White House because, well, Trump didn't give a shit, okay? Biden does give a shit, and that's going to, basically affect Biden's the Biden administration's foreign relations with other nations. I'm hoping that he does get serious with some of the worst offenders you know, when it comes to persecuting LGBTQ people. So, number 7, Biden formed a new Gender Policy Council. Let's get into this.
The Biden administration announced the formation of the White House Gender Policy Council on International Women's Day in March. The White House said the council will be an essential part of the administration plan to ensure we build a more equal and just society by aggressively protecting the rights and unique needs of those who experience multiple forms of discrimination. This includes individuals who are Black, Native, Asian American, Pacific Islanders, people with disabilities and the LGBT+ community. The announcement of the council was accompanied by 2 more executive orders to protect LGBT+ people and women. One order focused on advancing gender equality and equal opportunities for women and girls. The second focused on reviewing the U.S. Department of Education's policies to guarantee education free from sexual violence.
Right. Number 8. The White House said incarcerating trans women in male prisons is unconstitutional. Now, this actually affects a friend of mine, possibly. Well, I hope not. Obviously, it's to do with my friend Ari Demeslo, who could be facing a prison sentence soon. You know, there's, you know, unfortunately, she doesn't think she's going to go to prison, but you know, there's still the possibility she could be, you know, for essentially just selling Bitcoin. But yeah. Anyways, let's get into this.
8. The White House said incarcerating trans women in men's prisons is unconstitutional. The U.S. Department of Justice made a statement in a legal brief about Ashley Diamond, a trans woman who is suing the state of Georgia after being repeatedly sexually assaulted and denied health care while in men's prisons. The DOJ said the 8th Amendment requires prison officials to conduct individualized assessments that lead to reasonable safe conditions of confinement and adequate medical care for all prisoners. The statement also added that housing inmates in facilities that do not align with their gender identity puts incarcerated trans women under substantial risk of serious harm. 9. Biden was the first president to mark Trans Day of Visibility. Biden made history by becoming the first sitting president to formally...
Yeah, and that meant a lot, actually. I know some people say, oh, why does that mean? Because what he's doing is he's bringing... I mean, when he gave his victory speech in November, right, it was the very first time any elected, any president who had been elected, you know, in their victory speech ever mentioned trans people. And, you know, but basically, it's bringing trans people into the mainstream. It's normal, you know, helping to normalize things for trans people. That's what what Biden's doing, and I applaud him for doing it. And I also think that Trans Day of Visibility should be considered in higher regards by the trans community. That's just because I do think it's you know, I'm not denying that Trans Day of Remembrance isn't important, and obviously it does highlight the persecution of our community and, you know, the fatalities that causes. But at the same time, we need to send out a more positive message about the trans community, and Trans Day of Visibility is the vehicle to do that.
Biden made history by becoming the first sitting president to formally mark International Trans Day of Visibility on the 31st of March. He said in a presidential proclamation that he wanted to honor and celebrate the achievements and resiliency of transgender individuals and communities. Biden also called on Americans to join in the fight for full equality for all transgender people. He also applauded the work of heroic trans people to give countless other transgender individuals the bravery to live openly and authentically. Biden said this hard-fought progress helped shape an increasingly accepting world in which peers at school, teammates and coaches on the playing field colleagues at work and allies, are standing in support and solidarity with the transgender community. 10. Pride flags on the same flagpole as the U.S. flag. Secretary of State Antony Blinken authorized U.S. diplomatic outposts worldwide to fly both flags from the same pole.
See, yet again, that's an important step, because basically U.S. embassies, right, in countries where, let's just say, they aren't as progressive towards LGBTQ people, and in fact are damn right persecute LGBTQ people. If U.S. embassies fly those pride flags, right, it's sending out, a message, a pro-LGBTQ message, that the U.S., supports LGBTQ people, and opposes them being persecuted and killed for being LGBTQ. I know some people might not grasp that, but it does. Sure, there needs to be a lot more to tackle, the governments of those nations persecuting LGBTQ people. It's going to take a lot more than flying a pride flag, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
To fly both flags from the same pole, overturning a 2019 Trump-era ban. The directive removed the ban, and consulate bosses will be able to decide if they want to fly the LGBT+ flag. Such symbols of solidarity with the LGBT+ community will be based on what is appropriate in light of local conditions, Blinken's directive said. It will take into account a pride flag might not be looked upon favorably in countries and regions that look down on LGBT+ rights.
Yeah, but I hope that the U.S. embassies in those places actually do fly the pride flag, as a sign that the U.S. do support the U.S. does support LGBTQ people, and the vast majority of Americans do, right? They're the Americans you don't hear. The Americans you do hear are always the bigots, sadly, because, as they say in the journalist business, they make good copy. The Lauren Witzkes of the fucking world. I still go on about her.
However, there has been little movement on furthering protections for trans...
Right, hold on. But this article does say where Biden needs to improve.
But Biden has yet to fulfill his promises on the Equality Act. Anti-trans violence. The Equality Act is Biden's most prominent promise to push forward LGBT+ rights in the US.
And as I've said, there isn't probably enough votes in the Senate to get it through, unfortunately. But I don't entirely blame Biden for that.
But Biden has yet to fulfill his promises on the Equality Act. Anti-trans violence. The Equality Act is Biden's most prominent promise to push forward LGBT+ rights in the US. The landmark legislation would grant LGBT+ people full protections against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. It would also substantially expand the areas to which those discrimination protections apply. The legislation did pass through the House 224 to 206 in February, with all Democrats and all but 3 Republicans supporting it. However, the Equality Act's fate in the closely divided Senate is uncertain, and the legislation has stalled in advancing further in recent months. President Joe Biden also pledged to direct federal resources towards preventing violence against trans women of color. Biden promised that he would direct his administration to update the FBI's crime and homicide reports to include sexuality and gender identity or expression. This would help law enforcement fully measure the extent of crimes against the trans community, as often violent crimes go unreported or underreported. The Human Rights Campaign (HRC) reported at least 44 transgender or gender non-conforming people died in 2020 by violent means, the majority being trans people of color. It was the highest recorded number of deaths of trans and gender non-conforming people since the HRC began tracking this violence in 2013. However, there has been little movement on furthering protections for trans people of color. Sadly, the HRC said there have been at least 16 violent deaths of trans or gender non-conforming people in 2021.
Now, one point I'd make, especially about the point about trans women of trans people of colour, is that Biden can give them all the rights, all the legal protections and rights. But here's the thing: what they what do they also need is economic justice. You see, so social justice, should always incorporate economic justice. And what I'm scared of is that for some trans women of colour living in a trailer park in Alabama, yeah, they might have equal rights, but they don't have the economic clout to exercise those equal rights. If you see what I'm saying, that is one problem I see. The other problem I see is that what Biden's doing, with all this LGBTQ stuff, is signing executive orders. Now, obviously, I want him to do that, but I worry that if if a Republican wins the 2024 presidential election, they'll just reverse everything, just as Trump reversed all the progress which Obama made with LGBTQ rights. Yeah. So I do have those worries. But for what Biden's done, I do applaud. He gets the thumbs up from me, but there is more to do. So I'm just waiting for the page to load. Why is it taking the frigging ever? Something has crashed. Ooh, oh shit. What the fuck? Ooh. Oh, here we are. Right. Okay. Father of trans teen arrested and jailed for testifying against cruel trans healthcare ban. Right. Now, I've read this article. Basically, this was a parent of a trans child who was giving evidence to the Arkansas legislature when they were considering bringing in a ban on trans youth getting healthcare. And because he went over his allotted time by like 30 seconds, the police were called on him. He was taken from the State House to jail, basically. I mean, this is undemocratic. So he went over for a few seconds. This is how they treat opposition now in Arkansas. I mean, this is well, I'm going to say it's fascism. Huh? You oppose the Republicans in Arkansas when it comes to, them persecuting trans people, and you're going to go to prison. Right? I mean, it's fucking disgusting. And if we need any more timely reminder of what's happening, yet another state. I mean, it's like, different states, same transphobic bullshit. And let me remind you that all these bills going through various state legislatures at the moment are all being penned by one organisation down in Arizona who are an anti-LGBTQ hate group. I think they're called the Freedom Alliance, which I find highly amusing. Freedom, but for freedom not to be for trans people to have equality. Is that it, right? They've signed another anti-trans sports bill into law in another state. The good news, though, is that the governor in Louisiana has said no to signing such a bill. Now, I think I mentioned this with Ozma the other night. There is obviously a large LGBTQ community down in New Orleans. So that might have something to do with it. So yeah. Be interesting. I don't know if I don't, from memory serves me right. I haven't brought one of these bills in Georgia yet, and I'm wondering if they will, because I do know this. Yet again, there's a large LGBTQ community in Atlanta, right? And I know that the previous Republican governor in Georgia said no to a bathroom. You know, remember when North Carolina brought in that bathroom bill, which said that trans people could only use the toilet of their recognized birth gender, and basically the Republican-controlled legislature in Georgia had wanted to bring in one, and the governor there had said no, and he had said no because there being a large LGBTQ community in Atlanta, essentially. So, you know, they realised that would, you know, not be in their best interest to do so, because, well, you know, LGBTQ people, you know, they basically, they're entrepreneurs just as like everyone else. They'll set up clubs and events and stuff and various services for people to use, and of course that brings in dollars. Yeah. As Bill Clinton once said, it's the economy, stupid. Right. So the final story for tonight. There was a video I want to react to, but I don't have time to do it tonight. I do have to try and keep to 2 hours. I'll explain why in a minute. Elliot Page warns trans children will die from deluge of horrible Republican lies. It's really that simple. Yeah, so Elliot Page gave an interview to Oprah Winfrey and basically said, called the Republicans out for the fact that they are going to cause the deaths of a lot of, you know, well, I hope not. I hope it's not a lot of trans people, but it could be a lot of trans people, yeah, particularly trans youth. You know, in some ways, this is, yeah, obviously this is Republicans reacting to the fact that there's a Democrat in the White House, and you know, but their reaction is going to get people killed. You know, can't you find something which is, you know, they can challenge, Biden about, which isn't going to lead to the deaths of innocent people? You know, how about him, you know, bombing, ordering airstrikes in Syria? Yeah, how about challenging him about that? Yeah. Oh no, of course the Republicans are all for bombing Muslims, aren't they? Right. Yeah. Well, Elliot Page is right. Sorry to leave you on such a downer for the weekend, but anyways, as I said, I needed to explain why I needed to keep to this show to roughly about 2 hours. It's to do with what's possibly happening next Wednesday. I'm hoping that this show will be simulcast on YouTube, and well, obviously it's going to be it's going to be broadcast on YouTube, but sorry, it's going to be broadcast also on the Liberty Radio Network, but yeah, I'm still not completely sure it will be. I'm hoping it will be. I don't want to go into details about what's going on, but there's a possibility this might not actually happen. There's something happening on Monday, which has a bearing on this. In the United States, not here, I'd add. Nothing to do with me. I will be back on Wednesday no matter what. Now, obviously, some people are going to ask, why aren't I doing a show on Monday? The reason I'm not doing a show on Monday is because of the World Snooker Championship final, and snooker is one of my favourite sports, and I'd already said I was going to take the evening off, have a few ciders, and watch some snooker. Plus, also it's a public holiday, here in the UK. Anyways, so, but I will definitely be back Wednesday, and obviously, you know, we'll know then if I'm going to be broadcasting on the Liberty Radio Network. Fingers crossed I will be. You know, this is why I've been keeping the show to 2 hours, because my slot with them is going to be for 2 hours. Anyways, in the meantime, if you like this video, give it a like. Also, if you like what I do, please give it a share on your social media feeds. You know, if you've got any feedback, please leave a comment below. And most important of all, please do subscribe. You know, I had a bit of a boost over the last few days in subscribers, which is good to see. But yeah, I want more subscribers. I want to become, you know, much larger, you know, and basically spread the word in championing LGBTQ, the LGBTQ community. Anyways, have a good weekend. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and, well, peace out.